This is happening everywhere. People are rethinking things. Think about Tesla, rethinking of the automobile, solar power. Again, Spain is a great leader in this area. Now roughly at the same price parity with natural gas. The United States, for example, will be the world's largest oil exporter within the next decade. Who would have thought? I'm quite convinced that all of these, plus the changes in medicine and science, are going to change our world sort of forever. And why does this matter? Well, people have studied it. Where do jobs come from? What do politicians want the most? Jobs, right? That's how they get elected. We found that startups together with high-growth firms, which are disproportionately young, account for 70% of the overall job creation here. We know the answer. More entrepreneurs, more creativity, more jobs. There's a lot of reasons to think that Spain can do this. You have the universities, you have the history, you have the culture. There's a lot of reasons why we would choose Spain, besides the good and sunny nature of Spanish people. Now, a friend of mine and somebody I admire is Jim Cameron. And he said, there's nothing more powerful than someone who doesn't know what they can't do. Right? So I would say that scale matters a lot. If you look at the efficiency of Amazon, the effectiveness of Apple, the amazing Chinese manufacturing, it's important to build companies that can scale. And there are plenty of examples of small countries, much smaller than Spain. I'm thinking Hong Kong, Singapore, Estonia, and on, who have gone to be global leaders in areas where their platforms are scale platforms. It's interesting that we've all grown up with our history about capitalism and Marxism and so forth, but Marxism has largely been discredited because it was based on agrarian principles. The future of Spain are the knowledge workers, the educated people who will create these new companies, who will move your rich and varied culture forward. Right? That's where the growth will be. And you need to create a space for this innovation. You have to find places for people to do this. I'm always worried that governments, especially in Europe, will regulate out and prevent innovation. That they will somehow prevent a place where a young entrepreneur can invent something completely new. It's interesting that the original European community notion was one which would allow innovation in all the different places. So it's important that as we build these innovative centers, we allow people to experiment. We have the same problem in the U.S. Premature regulation, saying no, preventing things, is probably a real threat to innovators and future innovation. It's interesting that I was studying this, that in the UK they had a copyright law, that if Google had been founded in Britain, it would have been illegal. Right? Now they've changed that, but they changed it after Google's success. Interesting. So what are some examples of innovation from Google? 2 years ago, we took a large set of supercomputers, and technically a neural net, and we didn't program it in any way. And we set it out to watch YouTube. And this set of computers watched YouTube for 11,000 hours. Very, very long time. What did it discover? Well, it discovered the human face, eyes, nose, and mouth, and it discovered cats. Right? Cats. Tails, flopping around, all that. How is it that one of the most important discoveries of the world is we didn't discover Plato or Aristotle or anything really mathematic. We discovered cats. Well, I don't know. But imagine if you kept watching more YouTube, you'd discover dogs and cars and people and so forth. We're right on the edge of major discoveries. I'll give you another example. A team from Google, a small engineering team, figured out a way to put a computer inside the lens of a contact lens in your eye with a battery. And we have the record for the smallest battery in the world. Not the largest, but the smallest. You put this contact lens in, and if you have diabetes, it will change color to tell you your insulin state. This is life-changing for people who are ill with diabetes. We license this to a pharmaceutical company, and eventually here in Spain and all around the world, people will be wearing these contact lenses to make their lives better. Google Glass, right? You have seen Google Glass with the little lens that you can look. Who's using Google Glass? Surgeons, the police, firefighters, people who need their hands that they can do things and they need to know what's going on. There's so many examples of new sources of information. What's more important than knowing your body state through your contact lens? That's information that matters. So what's happening in science that will create the next wave of entrepreneurs? There are tremendous inventions in molecular biology, understanding how cells work, how our bodies work, and how life works. We're trying to know how the brain works and how it really works. How do the processes of the brain actually process? We're seeing real improvements in artificial intelligence. We're beginning to understand how humans live, work, and play. There's a physics revolution in nanotechnology with new energy sources and a whole new threshold of discovery. New materials and new chemistry of the very small. All of those creating new materials, new intelligence, new opportunities for platforms. Now, how long does this take? It turns out it takes 20 to 30 years for technology to get to this point. The self-driving car was invented in 2004. It's now 10 years later, and we're still not broadly available. Should be available in the next decade. So that's 20 years. In medicine, it's often 30 years from the core discovery, right, all the way to literally 1 million people or 1 billion people being able to use it. And even though people are worried about a slowdown in computational speed, the next explosion is going to be in biology and in genetics and in the application of big data to all of that. So Google's strategy is obviously to support entrepreneurs, but what is Google's strategy going forward? Think of it as making the internet as easy to use as your toothbrush, but also as ubiquitous as toothbrushes. It's always there. You never think of it. You never worry about it. It's like electricity or air or culture. But also to do moonshots. Literally high-risk bets with a high payoff if they work, and not all of them will work. Autonomous cars, the contact lens. We're launching balloons, and the balloons go into the stratosphere and they float around, and they allow connectivity everywhere in the world. We take it for granted. Spain has very good telecommunications. We take it for granted that our phones here work. In the rest of the world, that phone is life. It's information. It's education. It's everything about their culture, and now they can talk literally to the sky to get that information. I want you to imagine with me this future and what's so interesting about it. In personalized medicine, the ability to sequence everything living and define what drug will work for it, to analyze outcomes and figure out the treatment for you, right? Literally the drug that works for you. 2 years ago, a group invented a technology called CRISPR, CRISPR, which will allow you to change the biology of cells to turn off and on the DNA. A huge breakthrough. We're very close to having the general ability to make cells using these mechanisms. We're very close to understanding the complete way in which DNA works in humans. We're very close to being able to turning on and off these genes. If the DNA is programming and enzymes are the operating systems, we're close to being able to begin to grow and develop these kinds of things for all of us. Transportation, right? A revolution in transportation. Safer and more reliable cars, as I mentioned. And eventually, flying machines that will be autonomous as well, although not first. In education, lifelong learning, and computers will be able to work with you to figure out what you don't know that you need to know and help educate you on your terms and for you. It's more important now because of connectivity for people in the rural areas of Spain, where maybe the schools are not as good as they are in Madrid and Barcelona and Sevilla and so forth, where all of a sudden the smart kid that's in a rural area where the teachers are not as good as they need to be can use the internet to be at the very top of the Spanish smart people and come to Madrid and become an entrepreneur. Figuring out how to teach people the way they learn as opposed to the way all of us are taught in the same way. There's a revolution in automation coming. Repetitive tasks over and over and over again. Long, crippling, and dangerous, replaced by smart robots under the control of people. I've already mentioned biology. There's a revolution in biology and medicine. The ability to synthesize new drugs that solve problems that we all have. That giving new drugs, new treatments, and new solutions. And eventually tissue engineering, where parts of your own body are used to generate new body parts. And indeed, the Nobel Prize was just awarded to someone who figured out how to synthesize stem cells from your own blood, allowing us to literally regrow parts of you. One of my friends says, well, does that mean that when I'm 80 or 90, I can get a whole new body? No, it's per part. You get one of this and one of that. You still get old, but you have new pieces in you. A manufacturer. And by the way, it's important to know, I was looking into the history of Spain. The average lifespan in Spain until the Middle Ages was between 20 and 30 years. Every one of you would be dead. Thank goodness for medicine. Thank goodness for one exception. In manufacturing, super strong materials, very light. Right? How do you make energy efficient? Lighter cars, less weight. Even stronger, even safer. Almost 10 times lighter and stronger and safer, we think. What about power? Using big data, moving power around. In Spain, the sources of power are in different places than the citizens. We can now efficiently move the energy using new computer techniques to avoid wasting it and making it more available. And rethinking cities. We now know cities are incredibly important. Putting people together physically is how we're going to put these teams together. We're all here in one place in the middle of the bull ring because it's useful for all of us to be together. Google is putting the Google campus, we put everyone together. And there's informal sharing, understanding how cities work. How does traffic work? How can we make the cities the great knowledge engines of the world? This partnership that I'm talking about is fundamental. But the ultimate goal is to make us smarter and and have us understand everything. We are right now solving vision, understanding, text understanding, and speech understanding. Google just won another set of speech understanding competitions against Siri and all the other ones. We just understand it better. In the next 3, 5, 7 years, 10 years, you can imagine products that you could choose that would read your email if you chose, and with your permission, and respond as though it's you. Or programs that would summarize things so that you could be briefed ahead of time. Think of these as programs that are like a perfectly intelligent assistant, someone who knows the things you care about and wants to make you more productive and have more fun. So I want to finish by talking about the policy positions. I hope it's clear that entrepreneurs matter, that innovation matters, and that we have a phenomenal opportunity ahead of us. That's why the South Summit is so important, the sort of startup that is all behind us. There's a quote from H.G. Wells, another very famous writer. Civilization is in a race between education and catastrophe. Let us learn the truth and spread it as far as wide as our circumstances allow. For the truth is the greatest weapon that we have. We need to be honest about this. We need to say that we want principled growth, that we want growth in the knowledge economy, in science, and in energy, and in the economy that I'm describing, to create these new companies represented here in this room that Google so much supports. But it's in the best interest of Spain and of the European Union and of the globe that you be successful. It's also important to understand that not all problems can be solved today, but that 5 or 10 years from now, we may be able to solve them with new entrepreneurs, new resources. This is a lifelong commitment. Let's focus on cities and the infrastructure like we see here to get everybody together, to work as teams, right? There's an old African proverb that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together, right? Do it together as we do this. Let's let innovation happen in all of these areas, and the many social programs and the social agenda help the people who can't quite make it. Let's help them along at the same time. To me, this conference, the reason we're all here, is the sooner we can get this next generation of entrepreneurs, the young people, in charge, the better the world will be. I think we should all, and I want to thank you, Maria, for organizing this, I think we should all commit ourselves that what we need are more entrepreneurs here, in Europe, in America, in the entire world. Thank you so very much. Thank you all.